Most parents spend thousands on college tuition but never teach their kids the one skill that creates actual wealth. While your teenager is learning algebra they'll never use, they're missing the financial education that could make them a millionaire by 30. The wealthy understand something most people don't. Money education isn't taught in schools because the system needs workers, not wealth builders. Today, I'm going to show you exactly what the top 1% teach their children about money that creates generational wealth. While your teenager worries about passing chemistry, 78% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck because no one taught them the money principles that matter most. You can watch this financial illiteracy play out in every neighborhood across America. Adults with college degrees struggle to save $400 for emergencies while their teenagers learn about the Revolutionary War, but nothing about the wealth revolution happening right now. The traditional education system creates a massive blind spot that devastates entire generations. We teach calculus that most students will never use after graduation, Shakespeare that provides cultural knowledge but zero practical value, and history that happened centuries ago, while ignoring how money actually works in the present moment. Your teenager can solve complex mathematical equations but can't calculate compound interest on a basic investment account. Here's what should disturb every parent. The average American doesn't invest their first dollar until age 33, while teen millionaires start building wealth at 16. That 17-year gap represents the difference between financial freedom and financial struggle for the rest of their lives. Most adults spend their 20s recovering from financial mistakes they made because no one taught them better. Every year of delayed financial education costs your teenager approximately $50,000 in lifetime wealth due to lost compound growth. When you calculate the actual numbers, the financial education gap becomes staggering. A teenager who starts investing at 16 instead of 26 will retire with hundreds of thousands more dollars, not because they're smarter or luckier, but because they understood timing and compound interest. Most parents spend $30,000 on college tuition, but 0 hours teaching their kids how money multiplies or how debt destroys dreams. They'll finance a degree that might increase earning potential by 20%, but they won't spend a weekend teaching principles that could increase wealth by 2,000%. College teaches job skills, but wealth requires business skills that never appear in any curriculum. Children from wealthy families receive financial mentoring from age 12, while middle-class kids graduate high school financially illiterate. Wealthy parents discuss investments at dinner tables, show their children portfolio statements, and explain business decisions in real time. Middle-class parents discuss bills, complain about money, and treat financial conversations as adult-only topics. Schools need workers, not wealth builders, which explains why financial independence isn't part of any curriculum. The education system was designed during the Industrial Revolution to create employees who follow instructions and accept paychecks. Teaching students to create passive income streams would fundamentally disrupt this model. The teens who become millionaires by 30 all share one common trait. They learned these principles before their 18th birthday. They didn't wait for permission or formal education. They understood that financial education creates more opportunities than any college degree ever could. Understanding why financial education matters is the first step, but knowing what specific principles create wealth is where real transformation begins. So what exactly separates teens destined for wealth from those heading toward financial struggle? There are 3 specific principles that every teen millionaire masters before age 20, and most adults never learn even one of them. These principles separate the financially successful from those who spend their entire lives struggling with money. Most people discover these truths too late, after decades of financial mistakes have already shaped their destiny. These aren't complex investment strategies or get-rich-quick schemes that promise overnight success. They're fundamental shifts in how teens think about money, time, and opportunity that create lasting wealth over decades. The teenagers who understand these principles early gain an insurmountable advantage over their peers who follow conventional financial advice. Principle 1 challenges everything schools teach about trading time for money. Principle 2 flips conventional wisdom about saving. And Principle 3 reveals why most people stay poor despite working hard their entire lives. Each principle builds on the others to create a complete wealth-building framework that works regardless of economic conditions. Assets versus liabilities represents the first principle that teens must master before wealth becomes becomes possible. Real wealth comes from owning things that pay them regularly, not working for paychecks that disappear immediately on expenses. Most teenagers learn to exchange their time for money through part-time jobs, but millionaire teens learn to make their money work for them through strategic ownership. The 17-year-old who buys dividend stocks instead of designer clothes builds wealth, while peers build debt that follows them into adulthood. That teenager receives quarterly payments from companies like Coca-Cola or Johnson & Johnson, creating passive income streams that grow over time. Meanwhile, their friends accumulate depreciating assets that provide temporary satisfaction, but zero financial return. Compound interest isn't just math taught in algebra class, it's time magic that turns small teenage investments into massive adult wealth through exponential growth. Einstein reportedly called compound interest the eighth wonder of the world, and teenagers who harness this force early gain decades of compounding advantage over adults who start later. Starting with $100 monthly at 16 versus 26 creates a $500,000 difference by retirement due to compound growth at average market returns. That decade of additional compounding time generates more wealth than most people earn in their entire careers. The teenager who invests $1,000 annually for 10 years and stops will retire wealthier than the adult who invests $1,200 annually for 30 years, starting at 26. Multiple income streams form the third principle because millionaire teens never depend on one source of money. They understand diversification protects and accelerates wealth by reducing risk while multiplying opportunities. While their peers rely on single part-time jobs, future millionaires create multiple revenue sources that compound their earning potential. These three principles form the foundation of teen wealth building, but knowing how to implement them practically is where teens actually start building their fortune. Understanding principles means nothing without specific steps teens can take starting today. Here's the exact roadmap that turns financially aware teens into actual millionaires, and it starts with actions they can take this weekend. You don't need perfect knowledge or thousands of dollars to begin. You need specific steps that create momentum and compound over time. This isn't theory anymore. These are specific, actionable steps that teens can implement immediately to start building real wealth while their peers spend money on temporary pleasures. Every successful teen millionaire followed variations of this exact pathway, adapting the steps to their unique circumstances, but never skipping the fundamentals. Most teens think they need thousands of dollars to start investing, but the real barrier isn't money. It's knowing where to begin and what to avoid. The investment industry deliberately complicates simple processes to justify expensive fees and services that teenagers don't need. You can start building wealth with the money you already have access to right now. First, teens need to open investment accounts, but not the ones most parents think about. Forget savings accounts that lose money to inflation every single year. Instead, open a custodial brokerage account through platforms like Fidelity, Charles Schwab, or Vanguard that allow tax-advantaged investing with parental supervision. These accounts provide access to real wealth-building vehicles without the restrictions that keep most teenagers financially stagnant. Index funds and ETFs provide instant diversification without requiring teens to pick individual stocks or time markets perfectly. The S&P 500 Index Fund gives teenagers ownership in America's 500 largest companies through a single purchase. They don't need to research Apple or Microsoft individually because they own fractional shares of everything through diversified funds that professional managers already optimized. Teens should focus on skills that generate income within 90 days rather than waiting years for career development. Digital marketing allows teenagers to manage social media accounts for local businesses within weeks of learning basic strategies. Content creation through YouTube, TikTok, or Instagram generates revenue streams that scale without geographic limitations. Tutoring leverages existing academic knowledge into immediate income, while service-based businesses like lawn care or pet sitting require minimal startup costs but generate consistent cash flow. Successful teen wealth builders allocate time differently than their peers. They spend 70% of their available time learning new skills and earning money, 20% investing and managing their growing portfolio, and only 10% enjoying their money through purchases or entertainment. This allocation creates exponential growth rather than the consumption-focused lifestyle that keeps most people financially dependent. Daily wealth habits matter more than occasional big moves that grab attention. Tracking every expense reveals spending patterns that drain wealth. Reading financial content for 15 minutes daily builds knowledge that compounds into better decisions. Reviewing investments weekly maintains awareness without obsessive monitoring that leads to emotional trading mistakes. These practical steps create momentum, but the real transformation happens when teens see what's possible if they stay consistent for months and years. The question isn't whether these steps work, it's what happens when teens actually apply them consistently while their peers remain financially unconscious. If every teenager learned these principles before graduation, we'd see the largest wealth transfer in human history within one generation. The compounding effect of millions of financially educated teens would reshape entire economies and eliminate the paycheck-to-paycheck cycle that traps most families. Start with one principle, one investment account, or one income stream this week. The teens who act on this information will separate themselves from those who just consume it. Action creates the neural pathways that transform knowledge into wealth-building habits. Your teenager's financial future isn't determined by their college major or their first job. It's determined by whether they understand these wealth principles before they turn 20.